All right, we want to say greetings to everyone and thank you all so much for being here. We're grateful to the Lord for allowing us to be here today and for uh, allowing us to gather to hear what He has to say. I'm grateful too is that we I noticed that we didn't have any audio coming out of our system back there, and so I guess had a technical difficulty, but the Lord allowed me to catch it before we got into the message so that I wouldn't have to go and try to pull the audio from somewhere else, because that's a whole nother deal there. I was talking about yours.
Oh.
That's okay, that's fine. But so we're grateful for that. I thought I was going to be able to speak on one thing, but it seemed like the Lord is leading me to speak on something else. And that's always on purpose, you see. If I ever get up and talk, is because the Lord's got something to say to you all. It's not just to pass time, or just because this is what we do on Sundays. Mm-hmm. So, I almost forgot, Brother Tank's supposed to come up and share with us a couple of things. So, y'all put y'all hands together for Brother Tank.
Hello, everybody. So, I have wouldn't be a testimony. It's not a praise report either. I was training this guy at work, so I'm gonna start from there. And so I train people at my job to do what I do and have them do it, good and things like that. And I got this one particular person. Like, I've trained a lot of people, and I got this one person. And the first thing I tell people when they get in my truck is, I'm saved. I don't allow any cursing or anything like that to go on in my truck. So your phone conversations, if it's like that, you got to get off the phone or get out my truck. So he told me, he was like, well, no, that's cool because I'm saved too. I don't curse. I don't do any of that. And I was like, okay, well, we can go ahead and keep it moving then. So we started driving to the first job that we had for that day. It was going pretty good. We was sitting in the truck talking about the Lord and things like that. It was pretty smooth, and I thought we shared like some of the same, beliefs and things like that. And being in this ministry, a lot of people don't believe what we believe, even though it's the Bible. They don't believe it. So, first job was fine, and like the whole time we're riding in the truck, I got the messages playing, and one of the messages came on that was the wages of sin, and I had to stop somewhere to use the restroom, and when I got out the truck, I prayed, and I asked the Lord, if you have anything for me to tell this guy, just let me know what it is, and I'll tell it to him, So we get to our last job of the day, and like I said, everything was smooth, everything was good. And Brother Bolden said something in the message that he didn't like. He was saying that we can live without sin and be perfect, and he was like, no, that's not true. So I stopped the truck and I pulled over, and I asked him, I said, so what about it isn't true? Like what don't you believe? He said that nobody's perfect and nobody can live without sin. And he looked at me, he said, so how is it possible that anybody can wake up and live without sin? I said, it's very possible. But like before he said that, he said something else like earlier in the day about you got to believe certain things by faith. So when he said that, I looked at him, I said, well, you got to believe it by faith and believe that you can do it. So he went on to say, no, that's not true. I don't believe it. And I said, well, the Bible, he said, well, Jesus was the only perfect person that walked this earth. And I said, man, that's not true. It's like, Nah, and he was just like, nah, that's crazy. And I took him to the Bible, and I took him to the book of Job. But before I took him to the book of Job, I said, well, Job was perfect. And he said, no, that Job, the Bible does not say that Job was perfect. And I left this part out yesterday, Brother Bolden. I asked him what was he willing to put on it, just like a little joking gesture. And he said that he would put his salvation on it, that Job wasn't perfect. And I told him, I said, man, you might want to change that. You don't want to put that on there. And I told that to him 3 times, and so I went to the book of Job, read what it said, and it said how Job was a perfect man and upright and all this, and he looked at me and he said, I don't believe that. That ain't true. And I asked him, I said, well, what book of the Bible do you read? He said the King James Version. So I switched over to the NIV version just so I can, show him that they all should basically say the same thing. So like the NIV version said that Job was blameless and upright. And I said, well, there you go. It's like, no, I don't believe that. That's not true. Like, okay. So we started talking about Noah, and I don't like talking about these things with people, because if you say that you're a Christian, then we're supposed to believe the same thing no matter what. It's just supposed to be flat out like that. And we went on to talk about Noah. He said, well, Noah wasn't perfect. He was a drunkard. He was drinking all the time. He wasn't perfect. And I was like, okay. So from there, he proceeded to call his dad on the phone and put him on speakerphone. His dad's supposed to be his pastor or his minister. And his dad got on the phone. He asked his dad, hey, Dad, is there anybody in this world today that's living without sin? And his dad said no, that it's not possible and all this and that. But before he called his dad, he said, well, if Jesus wasn't the only perfect person in the world, then Job was perfect, then what's the point of Jesus Christ coming to this earth? I said, well, Jesus was the Savior. There were still people who were living perfect lives and living without sin that was walking the earth. Like Jesus, he came for everybody, but, there were still people in the earth who was living perfect. And he didn't believe that. But get back to the part about the phone. When he called his dad on the phone, he called his dad, asked his dad that question. His dad said no, that nobody in this Bible was perfect, and nobody that was walking this earth was perfect. And he said, well, what about Job? Does the Bible say anything about Job, even though we just went to the book of Job? And he said, nope, Job sinned against God. And he said, well, what was his sin? He said he was questioning God and back-talking him. Okay. So his dad, he asked about Noah, which he said, I'm talking about the son now. The son told me that Noah, even though Noah was a drunkard, that was his sin. And I was like, okay. So his dad got on the phone and told him, well, drinking wasn't a sin, but something about Noah. And I was like, well, if you say that Noah was sinning because he was drinking, and you say that it's not a sin, then what is it? Which one is it? So after that, he went on to say that he had his doctorate degree in theology, and I told him, I said, well, that's not helping nobody at all. And from there, he got mad at when I said that, and I told him, I was like, man, look, we gotta get off the phone. We gotta get to this job, and things like that. So after that, like I said, everything was good. After that, the whole atmosphere changed. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to do nothing. We get to our last job. He really didn't want to ask me no questions. He just did everything and got in the truck. We went home. And I was like, oh man. I was like, man. So next morning, I'm on my way to work. And my trainer, like the head trainer, he called me and he asked me if I was on my way to the warehouse, because that guy who I trained yesterday, he was trying to ride out with somebody else. And I was like, yeah, I'm on my way. And I told him, I was like, well, come outside, And he came outside, and the guy who I was training, he was trying to ride out with the person who was training him before I trained him that day. And I told him, I said, you know what, just go ahead and just let him go. He can go ahead and ride out with him, because I already know why he doesn't want to ride out with me. And I was like, I'm not going to tell this person why, because that person's not saved. He already made that clear to me that he's not saved. So I just told him, I said, nope, you can go ahead and let him ride out. I don't want him back in my truck. Just I said, he can go ahead and ride out with him. And he actually said, why? So what did he do? Did something happen? I said, yeah, something happened, but it's not what you think. So he can go ahead and ride out with him. And ever since that, like even that morning when he saw me, he didn't really speak of anything. He just got his stuff out my truck and he rode out with the other person. And that's that.
Now, I wanted Brother Tanks to share that with you all because I wanted you to see what happens all the time. That when you find somebody that don't believe, you could say something. And Brother Tanks just happened to be listening to one of the messages in his truck, and the guy heard it, and he said, that's not true. And professed to be a believer, professed to be a Christian, and when Brother Tank showed him in the Word that Job was a perfect and upright man, I still don't believe it. So it's kind of like, well, what can you do if somebody don't believe the Word? Now, I learned some years ago from Brother Junior what to do in that situation. There have been times he's told me that he would be talking to somebody, that sin is of the devil, especially that verse, and I think it's in the 3rd chapter of 1 John, that if you're sinning is because your father is the devil, that he that commits sin is of the devil. And the person said, oh, I don't believe that. So he went, Brother Junior took him to the Word and showed him that. And I still don't believe it, is what he said. I still don't believe it. And Brother Junior just closed his Bible and got up and started walking towards the door to leave. And the man said, where are you going? I said, well, if I can't get you to believe this Word, once I show it to you, we ain't got nothing else to talk about. We have nothing else to talk about. And so it's kind of sad that people, they choose to believe what they believe instead of believing God's Word. You see, and that's the ploy of the enemy, is to get people to, they get taught a certain way for quite a while. And this young man, his father was a PhD in theology, and like Brother Tank said, what good is that doing anybody if you're not, especially if you've gotten away from the Word. And so that's where we are today in Christianity. You can show people something in the Word and they claim to be followers of Christ, and they still don't believe it. They still will not believe it. The Bible says that righteousness is by faith. Now, a lot of people mistake that to believe that your faith replaces your righteousness. No, what it means is righteousness comes by faith. You believe you're righteous, and then righteousness shows up. Everybody understand? It's not, I got so much faith that I can be out here sinning and God is just going to overlook it. That's not what that's talking about. Righteousness is by faith. Your righteousness comes because you believe that you're righteous. You'll act exactly the way you believe. You see that? You want to know what you think about yourself? You just, and what you believe about yourself, just look at your actions. Just look at your actions. The Bible also says in the book of 1 John that be not deceived. He that doeth righteous is righteous. In other words, if you're doing what's right, that means you're right. You see that? You're righteous. And so that's the society that we live in today, where even among so-called believers, people, they don't believe the Word when they see it. And because they don't believe the Word, they, again, this isn't something I grew up hearing people preach on. This isn't something that I grew up, hearing people say that you can live without sin. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. But when I read the Bible, I got enough sense to know, okay, regardless of how many people have spoke it or how many people I've heard say it, if the Word says it, then I better say it. Amen. You see, and I can't look and base, what I believe off of tradition and what other people have preached on in the past. You see that? So, one thing about that young man, and you may wonder what why he was so upset about what he had heard. Because when people hear something like that, especially if it goes against what they've heard all their life and what they've believed all their life, they know they have to do something with it then. And people are not happy about having to accept or reject what's right in their face. You see that? They don't, it can be, it was there, it's been in the Bible all along, you know. It's been there all along. But when you present something to people, they're held accountable for it, and they know that. They especially now, you see, it's in their face, and that's something. And I'm praying that the Lord will bug him about it. You see that? That's my prayer. Don't let him sleep good until he come to that. You know what was presented to him, and so people reject it initially because it's just something new to them. You know, and but once they hear it, they have to weigh that with other things. You know, they have to weigh that with other things, and so it's just, to me, it's crazy that people choose to believe the worst in that. When I was in prison, I got out of prison, I think it was May the 27th of 1995. And I remember I was only in there for 5 months. I got 6 months, but I got a month off for good behavior. And I remember when I got out, you know, it don't take you long to get used to a routine. And I remember when I got out, you know, of course, what people do when they're in prison, they count down until they get out, because that's something that they're looking for. But I remember when I got out and I was able to walk through those front gates off that military base there, and had a cab there waiting for me to take me to the airport. I remember just being like in unbelief, like just shocked. Man, I'm actually out of prison. I can go get me a hamburger. You know, I can go buy whatever I want to buy. I don't have to eat what's just being served here, you know, on the base. I can go buy what I want to buy. I can go to the mall if I want to go to the mall. You know, all of these different just freedoms begin to run through my mind. And it's one of those things where, you know, and people, especially if they've been in any type of war, they'll tell you about it. When you in a bad place like that, you don't want to think about being anywhere else, because then you'll get distracted. And that's what causes a lot of people when they go to war to get killed, because they longing to go home. And they're thinking about home, and, you know, and so it gets them distracted off of what's right there in front of them. And so sometimes that's what happened to people in prison. You know, if they start thinking about home, they're going to start thinking about breaking out. And they're going to get to acting up because, you know, they're comparing this life to that one, you see. And so I remember when I got out, I was just in shock. I remember waking up in the bed the next day at home in Louisiana and thinking, man, I'm waking up in my own bed. You know, it was just a big, you can't understand it unless you've been there. Just a big difference. And I was in such shock when I first got out, you know, when I walked out those doors, that I can remember looking back and I went to the mall before I went to the airport, and just to walk around. And I remember just looking around thinking, no, somebody playing a joke on me. They just, you know, it just seemed unreal. And at some point, I guess I grasped the idea that I really was a free man. I really could go where I wanted to go. I could eat what I wanted to eat. I could, you know, drink whatever I wanted to drink. I could do what I want to do. And I think about people when you tell them that they no longer have to be bound by sin. The fact that they would rather believe the worst. When they came and told me, Bolden, it's time for you to leave, you know, your cab is here, I wasn't arguing with them about it. You see, I was ready to get out. I didn't want to be there. Now, I had made friends there, but we weren't that close. You know, ain't that much friend in the world. I wanted to get out, and I wasn't going to argue with them about freedom. You see that? I expected to. And it's unfortunate today that so many people, even in the church, bound by sin, but satisfied in it. Not even thinking beyond sin. Not even thinking, do I really need to be doing this? And is there a way out of this? Now, that's in layman's terms, when we in prison, we call that being institutionalized. When your mind just adjusts to where you don't live beyond anything else but that. You don't. It's like, and you done got to the point where you don't care. That's what makes so many of them, when they get out, go back, because they've been institutionalized. And you even see it happens in real life. People do things on purpose to go back. You see, in prison, you don't pay bills. There's nothing independent about you in prison. If you don't already have it in you, you're not going to get that way once you get there. You don't pay bills. They tell you what to eat. They cook your food for you. All of that. Which is, to me, what is so bad about it, because nobody is rehabilitated. It's just a timeout. You see, so we put people in prison, and we keep them there for years and years among people among people who society deem as animals, and then they get out and act like that, and then we wonder, well, what happened? Those 10 years wasn't enough? No, I'm going to tell you what really go on in prison. If you're a criminal when you go in there, you're going to be a better one when you get out. It ain't like it's folks in there, everybody's just teaching Bible study. No, they teaching you how to do. No, this is what you did wrong. This is what got you caught the first time. You see, that's what they're teaching you, how not to get caught again. Except you get caught again. You see that? And so that's what we call institutionalized. And that's where people are, even in church, among so-called believers, institutionalized with sin. Not ever even thinking, maybe the Lord don't want me doing this. Maybe the Lord don't, it's like, what do you think the Lord thinks about what you're doing? And again, I always ask this, and I'll be glad when somebody answered one day, just what sin is it that you just have to commit? Just what sin is it that you just can't live without committing it? And I'll show you what you're idolizing. You see that? In reality, what's really going on is you love that sin. If you give me a name, I'll tell you love that sin more than you love God. That's really what's going on. And so all we can do is pray for people. This ain't Brother Bolden's doctrine. This is in the Bible, that we can live without sin. You see that? It is possible. But that righteousness, that comes by faith. That don't come, by accident. That's not anything that you just stumble upon. It comes by faith. It comes by you believing it. And of course, we know that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. You see that? And so, if you've never heard that before, then it's hard for you to believe it. You see that? And a lot of times that's what people have to get past, that culture shock. My wife will tell you, my wife, she's sometimes can be spontaneous. Hey, sweetheart, you want to do this today? And my initial answer usually is no. You should have put in a request way back and give me some. That's the way I am. I don't like surprises, And then after I think about it for a few minutes, I go back and I say, okay, yeah, we could do that. But don't be walking up on me like that. Don't be shocking me, But initially, if it's just coming out of the blue, my first thought is always no. No, I don't. No, that's And I think a lot of times that's the way it is with people. You can have some real people out there, when they hear it the first time, it's a shock to them, and their initial reaction is to say, no, I don't believe that. But you see, really what it is the devil is angry, because now it's in their mind. they're going to have to do something with it. That's why we as believers, we can't get, disheartened or grieved because somebody doesn't accept right away what it is we present to them. But just give them time, let that seed fester there. And the Lord He'll send somebody else to water it, and then it'll grow. You see that? And so that's the way we have to do that.